The CSGO market has been heating up over the past few weeks, and while it's only March, summer investing is in full swing, or we're at least starting to see some sort of hype. So today, I want to talk about how the hype is going to affect Operation Riptide investments and when to take profit during the long periods of hype like this one that we're possibly seeing, and if it's gonna end. But just before we get into the video, let's roll a quick pre-roll from the sponsor, Skins Monkey.
Hi you, yes you. Would you like to get $5 for free for your first trade? Just use skinsmonkey.com and get your extra skins. See description below to enjoy the special promotion and receive 5% cashback for trading your CSGO skins.
Okay, so during hype periods, I think the most important investments that you should keep your eye on are cases with a lot of supply and just cases that have tended to be good investments in the past few months, past few years. The breakout case, for example, the glove case has sort of turned into one, stuff like that. And the reason I say that is because they tend to be basic investments that the rest of the market centers around and tends to follow. And a really perfect example of this is going to be the Riptide case, which is weird because it's a case that I thought was going to lower in price a lot, but to me, since it didn't, and since it's had so much strength in the past month, I think it really shows how strong the market is. And I think it should also be a good indicator on how other Riptide investments are going to do or should be doing, and because they aren't doing certain things, it shows weakness, and we'll get into that in a second. But I think it is an indicator on the whole CS market. Just looking at the prices on this case, you can see where hype periods are such a big deal. From February 1st to March 1st, the Riptide case literally gained 1 cent. But in the months since then, the Riptide case has gone up from 59 cents to $1 for a convenient 69% gain. So this is a crazy shift considering these things were trading in the 50 to 60 cent range for about 5 months. I know a lot of that was during when the operation was going on, but still, people really like this case and people really like the knives in it. So at this point, I'm kind of surprised that didn't happen earlier and that this massive move is happening now. It kind of has to be like some sort of hype in the market or something abnormal. So the last time Operation Riptide cases were worth as much was only a few days after they dropped, and it's funny because we see the Broken Fang cases right around that range as well. They're right at the price when Operation Broken Fang dropped as well, which is kind of interesting. But to get an idea on where these things will go from here, we can look at the Shattered Web case and Broken Fang cases. Starting with the more recent Broken Fang case, we can see that last year there was a similar period of growth from mid-February to the end of April. The case then died down over the summer, but the big difference between this case and the Riptide case we're now looking at is that Broken Fang ended late into the year in May, which basically overrode any summer case investment hype that was going on with the case since the Snakebite case got released along with it, and people were not happy about that. It caused a huge dip in price. So while it's not a perfect example, we can still see the pattern of case hype happening with the start of spring and possibly moving into May. The Shattered Web case is a better example to look at. Since Operation Shattered Web ended earlier in the year like Riptide did, here we have 2 years of data worth to look at, and it shows an interesting pattern. In both 2020 and 2021, the Shattered Web case had good runs starting in early April, going up to a peak in late May. In 2020, the case then broke up to a higher peak in July, while in 2021, the case reached that May peak and then shaved off about 25% of its value. It's worth noting that in both the Broken Fang and Shattered Web case hype took off a bit later than it has this year. I think it has something to do with the fact that Riptide ended pretty early in the year compared to other operations, so the time between the operation ending and the hype beginning started earlier, which is an interesting thing to note. And it's possible that this quote-unquote hype, which this might not even be summer hype even though we are seeing some really strong price movement, it may be based on when operations end. Because once again, as I've covered a million times, if we don't have an operation in the game, if we don't have a major in the game, people don't really have anything to spend money on. They don't have sticker capsules, they don't have operation stars to pretty much gamble with, they only have cases. So using these examples on the Riptide case, we can say that the Riptide case will probably reach a peak sometime in the next 15 to 25 days, which is a pretty tight period, and not only that, it's really close. And after that, I think it may either break up to higher levels into June or break down to a more natural 70 to 80% of its peak value, which is a pretty drastic drop. I would say if you're more safe with your investments, to probably sell these cases around mid to late April and just forget about them. If you're a riskier investor, holding onto these could turn you a massive profit if they break up, but there's no guarantee that they won't break down like we saw last year. And not to mention, This price, I'd say, is kind of already pretty crazy with them. Once again, it's near the price that they started at, so really, how much more do people want to pay for this case, especially since the operation was so recent? But this market is insane. Challenger's capsule 5x'd in price not too long after those things were 25 cents in game, so honestly, anything can happen, but it is a bit of a risk because these things already have had such a good run. So if they break up, that'd be insane. If they break down, I really wouldn't be surprised, and that's the thing I would go with, because if they break up, you're kind of gambling on that summer hype. Or what I should say is that you're gambling on the hype happening now to continue throughout the summer. But now that we've covered cases, let's talk about some of the more popular Riptide skins. First, looking at the Train collection. The Coalition and Gamma Doppler were skins that potentially anyone can get their hands on for $15, as they went for 100 stars, and the Battle Pass, or whatever you call it, only costed $15 in the game. So because of that, their price really hasn't moved much. It probably is going to be really hard to make it move. I mean, just looking at the deviations for the factory new Gamma Doppler, the trend is pretty much completely flat at only around $17, which really isn't a bad price, but the only deviations being the rarer patterns, the Emerald obviously. The Coalition is surprisingly different though. This thing has had a crazy price trend compared to the Glock Gamma Doppler. It's been up and down and up and down. I don't know why nobody uses the A4 anymore, but I guess people just see it as a rare collection skin and they want to buy it up because of that. But the price action has been kind of crazy, and that's really weird considering the Glock Gamma Doppler has been completely flat. And especially with this recent jump up that we've seen in this past week or so, it leads me to believe there's quite a bit of hype going on in the market, or a lot of strength at least. But either way, let's move on to the Mirage collection, starting with probably one of the favorites, the Fennec Fox. There isn't much variation here because of how much this thing costs, so the Mirage collection also seemed to be a bit of a bust when it comes to this market hype that we kind of see is happening right now, and a lot of skins, a lot of cases showing tons of strength. The Dust 2 collection's Gold Arabesque and Vertigo's Imminent Danger are also in the same boat as the Mirage favorites due to just kind of how expensive they are, and I don't think this price is going to maintain for a long time. I think they're going to end up like the Op Fade. The only case I can make for these things going up, because their supply seems to be really high, or at least the Mirage collection does, the other two don't, but they don't really seem to have anybody wanting them. If the summer hype comes, I think they can go up. If not, I think in this next year, or at least next couple of months, they're going to go down in price. I don't think people are going to continue buying them at this insane price that they're at right now. But that really only leaves us with the Riptide collections, Ocean Drive and Elite Museo. Surprisingly, these skins have actually gone down since the Riptide Case hype began a month ago. And this kind of tells us not to invest in these Operation Riptide skins since they're still in a new case during hype periods, since if anything, their value seems to decrease with more and more people buying the cases on the market, and of course more and more people opening them. It also does prove that this recent surge in the Riptide case price kind of just seems to be hype, as the prices of the skins that should be theoretically supporting the case are going down rather than going up, like they would if this was a long-term correction. So looking at all the operation investments affected by this hype, the only real conclusion to make is that the case is the most reliable investment if you want to cash in on this hype while it lasts. But at this point, I think we're too far in to make it worth it. If you're holding on to these cases though, you could possibly make some, you probably have made some really good money actually, let me stop myself there, but in these next 15 to 25 days, things can get a bit shaky, and we could definitely see a correction in price, especially with the major coming not too far after that, or possibly the major update even coming in that 20 or so days. So unless you really want to hold this thing for a long time, I think we're going to see a big correction when this major does come, or at least in these next 20-ish days, because the run has been too good so far. Everything good has to come to an end eventually, especially in the market. Things cannot be completely parabolic. Case is already at a price it was at during the beginning of the operation, so if you held this case for this long, which I honestly said you shouldn't at the very beginning because it's insane that we see this hype, I think cashing out is just a fair move right now, and it's probably going to make you the most money, at least if you don't want to hold for another year or so. But the thing is, on the flip side, we could also see this hype continue into the summer like we've seen before, or the major could kind of cause things to die down, cause a hype to die down and the prices not to increase as much. So especially with the Riptide case doing this well in this short of period of time, I would be selling here because, I mean, you're selling at a great price, you can't complain, but holding on to some of your cases might not be a bad move either if you think this hype is going to continue. But besides that, let me know what you guys think about this hype in the comments down below. That pretty much does wrap it up for this video. So as always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and check out some of my other videos as well. And of course, check out the sponsor, Skins Monkey. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.